The oppressive heat of summer had cast its relentless grip upon the land, and the allure of the great outdoors beckoned us like a siren's song. My friends and I, brimming with youthful enthusiasm and a thirst for adventure, decided to embark on a camping trip deep within the heart of the Blackwood Forest. Little did we know that this journey would lead us to the very brink of terror itself. Our group consisted of 5 intrepid souls: Sarah, the fearless leader of our little expedition, who possessed an unshakable belief in the supernatural; Mark, her boyfriend, who always seemed to find humor in the darkest of situations; Emily, the astute and analytical thinker of the group. Finally, there was me, John, a skeptic who often questioned the existence of anything beyond the realm of science and reason. We arrived at the forest with great excitement, eager to escape the sweltering city and immerse ourselves in the cool embrace of nature. The Blackwood Forest was ancient and formidable, its towering trees casting long, ominous shadows that seemed to dance with malevolent intent. The atmosphere was thick with humidity, and the air was suffused with the earthy scent of moss and decaying leaves. Our first day was filled with typical camping activities: setting up tents, gathering firewood, and preparing a hearty meal. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues of orange and red, and we gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and laughter. Little did we know that our mirth would soon give way to a profound, bone-chilling terror. As the night wore on, the forest seemed to come alive with a cacophony of rustlings and strange, indistinct whispers that echoed through the trees. Sarah, who was well versed in the supernatural, dismissed these sounds as the mere products of overactive imaginations. Mark teased us about it, claiming it was the forest's way of welcoming newcomers. Despite our unease, we laughed along with him. But as the hours passed, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The forest's symphony of eerie noises intensified, and the once bright campfire seemed to dim, as if it were losing the battle against an encroaching darkness. It was then that we noticed something peculiar. The stars above, which had shone brilliantly earlier, were now obscured by a thick blanket of clouds that had rolled in unannounced. Emily, ever the pragmatist, attributed the change in weather to a sudden front moving through the area. I desperately wanted to believe her, but a gnawing sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. It was as though the forest itself had turned against us, its very essence shifting to something far more sinister. Suddenly, Sarah's voice pierced through the growing tension. "Did anyone else hear that?" she asked, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. We all fell silent, straining our ears to listen. At first, I heard nothing but the wind rustling through the leaves. Then, faintly, like a distant lament, there it was, a mournful, otherworldly wail that sent shivers down my spine. Mark's jovial demeanor evaporated, replaced by a look of dread. "Okay, that's not normal," he admitted, his voice trembling. I felt a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the dropping temperature. Emily, always the level-headed one, suggested we investigate. "It could be an animal in distress or someone in need of help," she reasoned. Reluctantly, we grabbed flashlights and ventured deeper into the forest, guided by the eerie sound that seemed to beckon us like an ethereal hand. The trees loomed over us like ancient sentinels, their branches swaying in the unseen breeze, creating grotesque shadows that played tricks on our minds. The wailing grew louder, more anguished, and we soon realized that it was emanating from a dilapidated and long-abandoned cabin, nestled deep within the forest. Its time-worn boards creaked as if in agony, and the windows were shrouded in a thick layer of grime. Against our better judgment, we approached the cabin, the beams of our flashlights illuminating its grotesque features. The door stood ajar, as if it had been left open for us, and the wailing was now deafening, echoing through the cabin's decaying interior. We cautiously stepped inside, our hearts pounding in our chests. The interior was in a state of advanced decay. Cobwebs hung like spectral tapestries, and a thick layer of dust coated every surface. The source of the wailing became apparent. An old phonograph in the corner of the room spun erratically, playing a hauntingly distorted melody. Sarah approached the phonograph and carefully lifted the needle from the record. As the music ceased, so did the wailing, leaving behind an eerie silence that was almost as unsettling as the sound itself. "Someone must have set this up as a prank," Mark suggested, attempting to regain his bravado. "Let's get out of here." We agreed, and with a collective shudder, we left the cabin behind, making our way back to the campsite. But the night had taken a toll on us. The oppressive atmosphere of the forest seemed to have seeped into our souls, casting a shadow of unease that clung to us like a second skin. As we returned to the campfire, the clouds above began to disperse, revealing a moon that bathed the forest in an eerie silver light. We settled around the fire, trying to shake off the sense of foreboding that had settled upon us. It was then that we heard it again, the mournful wail, closer now, as though it followed us from the cabin. Panic seized our hearts as we realized that the source of the sound was no longer the phonograph, but something far more sinister. A figure emerged from the shadows, a gaunt, haggard figure with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through our very souls. It moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, its limbs contorted in grotesque angles. The wailing intensified, emanating from this unholy apparition. In a state of sheer terror, we stumbled backward, our hearts racing as the figure drew closer. Sarah, the fearless leader, was the first to react. She snatched up a burning log from the campfire and thrust it toward the approaching horror. The flames consumed it, revealing a face twisted in agony. "Please," it rasped, its voice a tortured whisper. "Help me." Our fear turned to pity as we realized that this was not a malevolent spirit, but a tormented soul. Emily, ever the compassionate one, stepped forward to offer assistance. "What happened to you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The figure's story was one of tragedy and despair. It had been a camper, just like us, who had ventured into the forest years ago. Lost and alone, it had stumbled upon the same cabin and had been lured by the haunting melody of the phonograph. But the cabin was no mere prank. It was a trap, a malevolent force that had ensnared its soul, binding it to this accursed place. As it spoke, tears welled in its eyes, and we could see the pain etched into its withered features. It begged us to help it find peace, to release it from the clutches of the forest. In that moment, we made a fateful decision. We would help the tormented spirit find its rest. Armed with newfound determination, we returned to the cabin, where we found an old diary that detailed the dark rituals that had bound the spirit to this place. With Emily's knowledge and Sarah's unwavering faith in the supernatural, we followed the instructions in the diary, performing a ritual to break the curse. As the last words of the incantation left our lips, a profound stillness settled over the cabin. The oppressive atmosphere that had gripped the forest began to lift, and the wailing ceased. The tormented spirit's form dissipated like smoke, and in its place, there was a sense of profound peace. The forest, once a place of dread, now seemed serene and welcoming. The clouds that had shrouded the moon dispersed entirely, revealing a clear, starlit sky. We returned to our campsite, exhausted but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The remainder of our camping trip passed without incident, and we left the Blackwood Forest with a newfound respect for the unknown and a deeper understanding of the power that can linger in places steeped in history and tragedy. As I sit here now, recounting this bone-chilling tale, I am reminded that sometimes the most terrifying experiences can lead to the most profound revelations. The Blackwood Forest will forever be etched in our memories as a place of both horror and redemption, a place where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurred, and where our lives were forever changed by the events of that fateful summer night.